mic
do that
in.
later. Okay.
Right.
You're gonna. Very good. Keep it. Welcome to the Humanist. Made you laugh.
Wait. What a way. When I pull it off, everything's going to fall off. So welcome
Welcome to
to
you.
All Souls, where we love beyond belief. Here, don't believe, or where you come from, you are welcome here, and you are loved. I'm Randy Lewis, your sabbatical minister, and I know that in the order of services, this says that Randy Lewis is going to be the minister today. I know we look alike. We have so much in common. But the minister that's delivering the message today is none other than our resident minister, Corey Lovell.
All right. All right. All right.
Series. Now, today we have a great story for all ages. Desmond gets free from our director of religious education, Shannon Boston, and we're going to have some incredible music, as you already heard, by our incomparable Rick Fordner, David Smith. Now, if you're joining us online, please let us know a little bit about yourself in the chat, and one of our welcoming souls will reach out to you to let you know a little bit more about us and how you can get connected to this great community of all souls. And please share this link of this service to your friends on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Roku, and any other medium that which you actually participate in. Now, at this time is this law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome to All Souls, where we love beyond belief.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Today come from our All Souls Everywhere member, John Townsend, a poet living in California whose words the ministers and I are blessed to receive from time to time. Hear his words. True respect grows from, is the fruit of love. Peace blossoms on another branch. Compassion flowers on yet another. Let us cultivate, walk gently over the ground of love. Stability.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Our story today is neutral. In situations of injustice, you have taken the side of the oppressor. If an elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say that you are... Our story today is by Matt Meyer, illustrated by Kim Pham. It is called Desmond Gets Free. I encourage you to order this book. Every morning, Desmond woke with the sunrise and would spend the day playing in the meadow. And every evening, Desmond would go to sleep in the middle of that meadow under a beautiful starry sky. One morning, when he awoke, Desmond realized that his tail was stuck right to the ground, asleep on his tail. Desmond pushed on the elephant and tugged on his tail. He pushed and tugged and tugged and pushed, but it was no use. And when he was out of breath, he had just a tail. I'm stuck, and it hurts. I wonder if you could gently wake him up and ask him to roll over just a few inches in the other direction so that I might go free. Well, elephants lie. I find it best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find that it's best to remain neutral in times like these. But she said the same thing as the gazelle. I find it best to remain neutral in times like these. Desmond, no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up, he saw another mouse wandering through the meadow. And elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow, and I wonder if you might run over and call out into his giant ears. And at the other end of the giant elephant's body, and he called up into the giant elephant's ears at the top of the giant elephant head. But the elephant didn't budge. The elephant heard Nelson's small voice far away, but he was too comfortable to move. Desmond. A little while later, though, Nelson emerged through the tall grass, and he wasn't alone. Nelson had found 3 other mouse friends who had to help him, and they scrambled up onto the shoulders of one another, and they scrambled up onto her shoulders, and then another, and they climbed until the whole group of them had formed a long mouse ladder all the way up to and yelled right into the giant elephant ear, "Excuse me, it seems you've fallen asleep on my friend." Elephant made a low groan. I'm comfortable where I am. Go away. Elephant's ear, and one by one they called into that giant elephant ear. And again, the giant elephant made a low groan. I'm comfortable where I... He whispered to the other mice, and then all at once, they yelled out together, "Excuse us, you're on our friend's tail. Roll over so he can go free." And this time, comfortable where I was, but I'll move over if you'll just agree to stop making such a racket, the elephant cried out. Elephant, and Desmond was finally free. Desmond and Nelson and all the other mouse friends spent the rest of that beautiful day playing in the meadow. And here indeed have, especially when we work together to make our world a better place for each and every one of us.
We must live in the radiance of tomorrow, as our ancestors have suggested in their tales. The simplest glimpse of that possibility of goodness, that will be our strength. That has always been our strength. Holding space of our beloved Dick Leeser, who passed away this past Friday, July 15th. Holding space for Dorothy Shakota and her husband, we hold space for Evelyn Green and her father-in-law, Charlie Green, who lost his wife after a long battle with the lingering effects on his ongoing health challenge. Let the warmth of this moment remind us of the love that for others, for ourselves, into a moment of silent reflection.
And a man who was never neutral. Of service, thank you. I just that would like one, honestly. Does anyone need one? Just let us know. Okay. Perfect. Well, I would give you my glasses, but then I wouldn't know where I am. So here's one, the first one. Boy, it's, come on.
I'm gonna tell you fascists, sure might be surprised. There's people in this world and we're getting organized.
You're bound to lose, you fascists bound to lose, just bound to lose. Oh, you fascists bound to lose. Tell them.
There's people of every color, march you fascists
Bound to lose. Oh, you fascists bound to lose. You're bound to lose. You're fascists bound to lose. Sing it with us one time. Oh, you fascists bound to lose. Just bound to lose. You're bound to lose. You're fascists bound to lose. This land is your land. This land is my land.
to the Gulf Stream waters.
This land was made.
For you and me.
Now we need your help. Here we go.
This land is
Your land, this wood forest, to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley, and followed my footsteps
to the sparkling sands of her diamond desert.
and all around me, a voiceless sounding.
This land was made for
Leave office,
us. I've seen my people.
as they stood there hungry, I stood there asking, is this land
Made California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water, made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
It's been a little strange recently to drive around Tulsa and see murals when they seem so alive and well. Fascism is constantly dragging us back in time. The same old playbook. Wrote in The Origins of Totalitarianism, calling the banality of evil. unlike that machine of music that's supposed to end fascism, it's a lot less glamorous and requires more of us than any single slogan could ever capture. It's not been until recently, in a way that even in my most empathetic moments, my most ministerial moments, I could hardly, that challenges us to make decisions, to reassess codes of conduct and ethical lines once thought definitive, to search inside of ourselves and ask, what might we do to protect and preserve those in our care and our spiritual values all at the same time? We're feeling, oh, that's crazy. Staying now. I'm willing to bet that nearly every person in this room has already or in a short time will. And now we have to ask ourselves, Wade was officially made a few weeks ago. I heard many talking about how this was the first time that the highest court in the land had actually taken a right away from the American people. And if you look at it from a strictly constitutional or legislative point of view, from a point of view tied not to our aspiration of universal human, our better angels, our creative love, then we must look to 1857, to the Dred Scott decision. And in that case, as many of you probably know, a black man who was enslaved crossed state lines to its way up to the Supreme Court, and in a 7-2 decision, Dred Scott was denied his freedom, creating precedent that American citizenship and rights conferred in the Constitution did not apply to peoples of African descent, whether born free or not. Chief Justice Roger Taney wrote the infamous line that they, meaning black peoples, had no rights which the white man was bound to respect. No rights which the white man was bound to respect, as if it were an incidental inclination that binds us together in respectful siblinghood. Only fascism can take a covenant and make it a cliff note. No rights which the white man was bound to respect. One might say the same these days for the reproductive rights of childbearing people. And the all but certain coming restrictions of anyone who dares live openly into their sexuality or gender in states rushing to strip away their right to privacy certainly strikes, all but ensured that slavery would not come to an end via peaceful legislative means. The decision dictated that black American citizenship would not be won at the ballot box, but would be wrestled away from tyrannical after a contested election, countless incidents of domestic terror, the Civil War broke out. And if I may speak to you candidly, honestly, not without hope, but also with stark realism that I can no longer ignore, I say to you that I fear with this new decision the chronic American amnesia of our 24-hour news cycle, with a loss of faith in our institutions, lack of courage and compassion in so many of our civic interactions, I think we may be headed toward another. I don't wish this upon us. I pray daily all should. Not just for our ability to remain agile and resilient, but for our families and our communities too. Because in these terrifying and uncertain times, in order to live honestly into our values, we have to have not just something to believe in, but some ones too. We have to have heroes. And thankfully, as Unitarian Universalists, we're flush with them. It's a contemporary of Theodore Parker and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Higginson was a lover of poetry, and for a time exchanged letters with a young Emily Dickinson, celebrating and encouraging her writing when almost no one else was. He was a fierce advocate for women's rights, working for women's suffrage almost a century before it became a reality. And he was also, before 1860, an anti-war activist. Protesting the Mexican became more turbulent. As the fight got closer and closer to home, his creative love called him into a new way of living. After an altercation with armed slave catchers attempting to forcibly extradite a freed black man from Boston down to the southern states, legal across the face with a sword that was meant for his throat. In that moment, Higginson looked the banality of evil right in the eye, stared realization. Higginson's creative love persevered, and his activism went from theory to practice. He supported the effort to create a stronghold to keep his Lawrence, Kansas congregation alive. Newt's church was burned to the ground by pro-slavery militias. His brother was murdered with help from Higginson and others, who always knew that the fight had to be waged. And Higginson also supported allies beyond his immediate religious community. He was one of 4 Unitarian ministers who made up the Secret Six, supplying financing and arms in late 1859. He would later be demonized, called an insane person. We don't actually talk about John Brown that much. And as Unitarians, we don't really talk about it. Because people called him crazy because he was a white man who was willing to die and kill for black people, who he saw as human beings because of his. When the Civil War finally broke out, Higginson freed black men. Higginson, but one need not necessarily choose. A little less than a century after Higginson came another couple of heroes. The liberal age. And America in the grip of the Depression by Nazi conquest in Eastern Europe. The United States even turned away from our shores. It was then that the Unitarian Service Committee recruited Unitarian minister Waitstill Sharp and her mother. Waitstill and Martha agreed to go abroad to Czechoslovakia, left her and Waitstill's children quite reluctantly, certain that her and her husband had made a terrible mistake. She missed her kids, was entrusted to assist, transformed her. She described the servant who would stay behind to an almost certain death. Quote, the parents self-control the children. And then the door of the plane was slammed shut with a finality that rocked the little group. And suddenly we were all one large and bereft family. Waitstill would return to the U.S. shortly thereafter to fundraise and rally support. But Martha, missing her own kids' birthdays and milestones, risking her life even when her friends, like Norbert Kapik himself, met tragic, horrible fates. Martha's capacity for creative love blurred lines that were once so stark for her in order to remain true to her convictions. Century Voices was actually in Germany during the rise of the Third Reich. He experienced firsthand the real-time slide from the liberal Weimar Republic era, which we have to realize contributed to the world stage some of the most incredibly progressive visual art, architecture, music, and culture of the entire 20th century. Berlin was the hot spot. And he watched that slide from the Weimar era into extremist minority rule of the Nazi Party, who even at its peak only represented roughly 1/3 of the German body politic. 1/3. Hadn't realized how quickly the landscape had shifted underneath him. And he was nearly arrested for openly critiquing the Nazi regime one day, which would have meant certain death. Adams said of this time, quote, freedom of association was being abolished. You keep your mouth shut, you conform, or you get your head bashed in. And at this juncture, have you done that would help prevent the rise of authoritarian government in your own country? And decades after the Second World War, Adams had to answer that question again. The increasing intensity of Christian fundamentalists' use of violence and intimidation to achieve their political and legislative ambitions was becoming evident. Christian fundamentalism with Confederate Nazism was becoming clear to Adams. He'd seen it before. Banality of evil, it repeats itself. There's no creativity there. It's the same old playbook. Adams warned his seminary students about this as far back as 1982, telling them, "When you are my age, you will all be fighting Christian fascists." And these last couple decades, sadly, have proved him right. To the Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist congregation shooting, from the Emmanuel Church shooting to January 6th. We're in personal safety. Because only once in a century or so do societies face crucial to survive such occurrences. Many of us Unitarian Universalists, when living into our daily aspiration of universal salvation, however you may define that, arms ever outstretched, bridges ever being built, we often deny, diminish, or compartmentalize the reality of evil, greed, authoritarianism, the brutality that lies at the heart of fascist power structures. Many of us simply can't process such a framework because it's antithetical to the wisdom of UUs who came before us and confronted the full reality of evil, stared it in the face, were targeted by it, resisted it, and sometimes even lived to tell the tale. We need to be grounded in the stories of our traditions past so we can learn from our ancestors' triumphs and mistakes. We need to be grounded in the creative love and dynamic community that sustains us so that we remember the humanity, remember the laughs, remember the look in the eyes when we hold close the people for whom we will fight and defend. Courage rarely comes as naturally to us as compassion. Courage takes a little bit more practice. But when we prepare ourselves spiritually for the possibility of that cold darkness, we are better able to maintain our hopeful flame of bright, warm light. I want you to do me a favor when you leave here today. This is the most Reverend Marlin thing I'm ever going to do. Ask you to do some homework when you leave here. He'd be so proud if he was here to see it. I want you to do me a favor when you leave here today. Think about the heroes that you hold local few. Maybe they're theologians, maybe they're doctors, maybe they're long dead, or maybe they're still young and vibrant. But they're the people you think about when your spirit is faced with that terrible dilemma. What do I do? How do I protect myself and my loved ones and preserve my spiritual values all at the same time? Find your heroes and print out a picture of them. Print a bunch of pictures of them, all of them, and put them up around where you can see a mirror above the coffee maker. Hang them up like the way there used to be framed photos of Abraham Lincoln and JFK and Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Martin Luther King in your grandparents' house. Do that. The way that we used to, on the TV, order commemorative plates, put it on the wall. Don't eat off of them. It's to respect them. I want you to do that. Print out photos of your heroes and do your best to learn about them. Learn especially their flaws. When were they too hot-headed and stubborn? When were they too quick to make sacrifices when they should have pushed harder? And then I want you to forgive your heroes because they're human, just like you and me. And then most of all, I want you to forgive your enemies because they're human, just like you and me too. And we do that not just because that's what divine humanity requires of us, what creative love requires of us, but that's how we'll actually live into the beloved community that we're. These are tough times. But they're times that will be written about and reflected upon for ages to come. We will be the guiding light for the generations that come after us, who will be determined to maintain the freedoms and community and creative love that we struggle to ensure for them, with compassionate deliberation. If we do it with that creative love in our hearts, a respect for each other, even a respect for our enemies, then maybe, just maybe, every single one of us can be heroes. Just for one day.
I wish I could swim like the dolphin. Dolphins could swim. We can beat them forever and ever. We can be heroes. I will be king, and you will be queen. Riding away, we can be heroes for just one day. I can remember the wall, by the wall, and the guns shot above our head, over us fall, and the shame was on the other side. Oh, we can beat them forever and ever. We can be heroes. We can be heroes for just one day. We can be heroes. We can be heroes for just one day.
Thank you. See, I told you once I take it off, it was going to fall off. Does it look right? The numbers are going up, and we're having to make this transitions and movements toward more wearing more masks. And I thank you for your participation and support and patience. This community is healthy and well. So thankful. There we go. So I do have a few announcements today coming up. The Day Alliance will be in here. Day Alliance, yes. It's a wonderful gathering of our church. It's one of our church's longest running groups, so if you want to come out and celebrate them, actually come out on the 21st. And we also will be beginning on August the 7th, 14th, and the 21st, Foundations of Unitarian Universalism. So you can learn it for 3 weeks, learn all about the roots of Unitarian Universalism and how they came together to form the basis of love beyond belief. So I encourage you to, and also save the dates. August 7th is Gratitude Sunday, when we're going to come out and celebrate all of the volunteers and all those hard work. So you come on. Y'all ain't happy to see Marlon? Say, Marlon, I mentioned your name and you barely got applause. I'm not going to say that. Our homecoming Sunday on September 11th. So every week here at All Souls, we give away our plate to an organization doing the work of love and justice. OCJ is dedicated to inspiring and equipping Oklahomans to overcome bias, bigotry, and oppression. They envision a... Thank you.
You guys made me cry twice today. So you know that you couldn't possibly get out of here in a service I'm preaching in without me talking about a random pop music factoid or reference. I already talked about fascism, so you can check that bingo box of Corey preaching. And now you can be like, random pop reference? Now it is. Here it is. So in late 1987, David Bowie performed that song, Heroes, that you heard on this Holiday His Power and Begin His Reign of Terror. And this performance of Bowie's could be heard on either side of the wall separating East and West Berlin. So despite whatever restrictions on freedoms existed in communist Berlin, they could hear his music and his performance of this beautiful song. And it stirred the peoples of both societies to transcend themselves, their creative divisions, their laws, to come together in creative love no matter the cost. But it probably was. So keep loving one another creatively, keep trying, be blessed, and be a blessing.
Stand